And Pat, you you always have great chats, and I love Thursdays. Tell us about today's guest.
Yeah, today it's Thursday, so it must be Joan Watson. Joni's one of my favorite people in the world. Associate editor of Integrated Catholic Life, and we kind of been using that as our jumping off point in our Thursday conversations. You can find that obviously on the web, Integrated Catholic Life website, or you can also go to joanwatson.faith, and there's all kinds of links there. Welcome, Joni. How you doing today?
I am great. How are you, Pat?
Wonderful. I am so conflicted, though, on what to talk to you about because I just finished your book, so I'm going to do a promo for that in the sense that I just want people to listen to the Virtuous Life because we're going to be talking to Joan Watson on her new book. Give me the title, Joni, because I don't have it in front of me right now.
Yeah, it's Opening the Holy Door, Hope-Filled
I was going to guess that.
From St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah, and it's wonderful, but we're going to do a full hour on that. So I wanted to talk about a wonderful article that you did, you always do wonderful articles, in Integrated Catholic Life, and this is the Between the Sundays that you do, and it's about our priests need us, and I love this. What kind of inspired you to write this, Joni?
Well, I'm really blessed to have a lot of friends who are priests. I've been a part of a lot of discernments and, in youth groups. A lot of men from my youth group went on to the priesthood. One of my friends is celebrating the 20th anniversary of his ordination today.
Wow.
And so I've been honored to be part of their journeys. And I think sometimes we overlook how much our priests need our prayers. There's so many groups that pray for vocations. My parish prays for vocations after communion every Sunday. But are we continuing to pray for our priests, or are we just demanding a lot of them? And I think there's a balance there.
Boy, no kidding. And you talk about, and I think this is the thing that kind of messes with people when it comes to understanding priests. And you address it well, that there is an ontological change, but they're still human. People have a really hard time with, because like you said, we shouldn't put them on a pedestal, but yet we also need to respect them and understand this ontological change. So can you kind of give us some insights? Your article does a wonderful job with it.
Yeah, so I think there's kind of a pendulum swing sometimes. In Catholicism, we have these mysteries that are both and we struggle with that, right? Jesus is God and human. And what does that mean? Our brain kind of breaks, right? Because it's a mystery. It's a paradox. It's a contradiction. So when we look at the priesthood, there was kind of this fad of like, oh, Father's just like me, and like, why can't I, celebrate Mass? And Father's just, and there was this pendulum swing of like, yeah, he's just like me, that then we lost respect for the priesthood, right? We lost respect for what happened at Mass and the incredible power these men have. But then when we put them on that pedestal, we make them angels, and then we forget that they're men, and they're fallen, and they're going to disappoint us, and they have temptations. And so there's this like balance we have to hold where I have to respect Father. Father has incredible power. He's the only one that can forgive my sins through the sacrament of confession, but he's also human. And so he's going to disappoint me, and he's going to sin, and I can't be scandalized by that in the end.
Yeah, and I think that idea, and I think, that hit hard in the church during clergy abuse and things like that. People were like, because, there is something in us where we just do expect our priests to be angelic.
and they should be great, right? Like we should hold them to a higher standard, absolutely. But they're not angels, and there's a reason God didn't give us angels to be priests.
And you mentioned that in your article, and of course I've got all these notes written, Joni. But you mentioned something written by Newman, right? On men, not angels, the priests of the gospel. You said everybody should read that. What was your takeaway when you read that? Because I did read it after I read your article.
Yeah, it's a great essay and Newman can be kind of hard to understand. We kind of have to like put our British, glasses on when we read him. Yeah. But he basically says like, we need priests who can, relate to us. Like there's a reason God gave sinners this power, because they can say, yeah, me too, in confession, right? And yet we
Right.
can stand in awe that God chooses the most unworthy to give this great power. It's not them, right? It's Christ. It's nothing Father does. The Father doesn't bring he has talents, but that's not why he was chosen. And so God is working through the priest to do these amazing things. And in the end, the priest can say, yeah, like I know what you're going through because I struggle too. But we don't like to hear our priest say that, right? I had a friend one time who told me, like, I want my priest to be like, not be tempted or not be
Right.
human. And I'm like, that's not what we chose. Like, that's not what God chose. They're one of us, and they should be called to something higher. But it's just a reminder to us that we have to pray for them because they're going to disappoint us. They're going to hurt us. And so we have to pray for them because the devil's going to prowl on them even more, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah. And I love that you talk about that we do kind of this disservice to them, when we ignore the ontological change that occurs, and that's that balance we've been talking about. But you give a great example of like a friend of yours that was ordained, that he, before he was ordained, you could talk to him about your struggles or whatever, and he would give you advice. But after, he could hear your confession, and he could raise your soul from the dead. What a great line, Joni. So how did you kind of come to that realization with, since he was your friend?
Yeah. So I actually got to be his first confession, which is a huge honor. It's oftentimes the priest gives his first confession to like his spiritual director or another priest. And I asked my best friend at the time, I said, could I be your first confession? And then I was like, why am I asking that? Like, why am I wanting to go to confession to my friend, right? There's so often we want to go behind the screen and like in anonymity. But then I was like, well, he already knows everything I've done anyway, right? Pretty much. So it was such a powerful moment of that realization that here is my friend, but he's different now. Like hours after his ordination, he's different. And I think we lose that sometimes. And we can be like really critical of Father without realizing how much he has to deal with and how much, I don't know. I get really nervous when people get super critical of their pastors because we have no idea what they're carrying. And many times they're carrying it alone, right? So often our pastors live alone. Man was not meant to live alone, right? But they don't have associate pastors. They don't have support. And so I just want everyone to give their pastors a little break sometimes. And every time you're tempted to criticize something they do, we should be praying for them even more. If we prayed as much as we criticized, the world would be a different place.
Oh, I love that, Joni. And I love that you said, when you say something bad about your pastor, spend a holy hour in prayer for him. And I love that. I think that's a great, because we forget. No, they bring us Jesus. I keep saying that to people when they say something about their pastor. This man brings us Jesus. You should be excited,
Amen.
Well,
Amen.
thanks, Joni. Thanks, and I'm looking forward to our conversation on the Virtuous Life. So today we talked to Joan Watson, and she is the associate editor of the Integrated Catholic Life. So look her up online. It's amazing. She's amazing.
Love that, Pat, and love that reminder. Instead of criticizing, pray for our priests. For goodness sake, the weight that they carry, the temptations that they must go through on a daily basis, the attack that they must be under in order to be married to us. We're their spouse, and that's a great sacrifice by itself, in my opinion.